All right, this is not a hot political question, it's a hot legal question. My name's Carl, I went to the Coalition for Court Transparency. You referenced 5 areas that American judges might do well to consult foreign sources or foreign legal thought. High courts in Canada and the UK and many, many other countries have cameras. I don't want to know if you support cameras because I already know where you stand on cameras in the Supreme Court. But there's a nice lounge at the Supreme Court where Supreme Court bar members are allowed to listen to live audio. Why don't we allow the live audio to be transmitted outside the building to everybody else who might not have the money or means to come to Washington, D.C. and wait in line outside in the cold to be able to listen to such audio?
So an unsatisfactory answer there. Now to give my unsatisfactory answer to question number 2 about cameras in the courtroom under the guise of radio, you have to understand that it's a pretty tough question, and we're pretty conservative, right, with a small c, when you start talking about our institution. I mean, we don't know what would happen if we let cameras in the courtroom, and the risks would be that 2, and we don't know what the answer is. 3, actually. One risk is that people would begin to think that the oral argument, which is about 5%, almost all of our material is submitted in writing, they would begin to think that that was what we were about. The oral argument, that would be misleading, but not deadly. What might be worse is that people do relate to people. That's good. You relate more to your family than you relate to your friends, than you relate to people you don't know, than people you see you relate to more than people you just hear about in statistics. You relate to nothing, not at all. Okay? That's the human condition, and I think it's probably a good one. But the job of an appellate court, and particularly our court, which is about 3 levels of appellate courts, or 2, is to think about how our decision is affecting the 300 million people who aren't in the courtroom. They're not there, but they will possibly be affected by our ruling. And people might well just look to the good guy and the bad guy. And that might have an impact on the effectiveness of the court, or what is the most obvious thing, and you get privately opposite advice from different members of the press on this one. It won't affect us. I mean, we're grown up, we hope. And there's the press there anyway. And why will it affect what questions I ask? I have to watch what I say anyway. Apparently I don't, but nonetheless, you have to watch it. It's public and the press is there. And so why would this make a difference? To which some members of the press will say, you just wait till you see how you react. When you ask a question in good faith on A, and then it's reported on various shows on television and they show a picture of you and looking, you'll be pretty careful. And maybe you'll be careful to stop asking. That might be a public benefit, but nonetheless, you see the point. And you say, go see what happens in the Senate or the House, which perhaps has to respond to public opinion. But the reason you have a court, the reason we decide constitutional questions, if you go back to Alexander Hamilton, is why? Because this document is written, where did I put it? It's up there. Here it is, good. It's written not just, it treats exactly the same way the least popular and the most popular person in the United States. That's what it's supposed to be. And by the way, he said, we better give the court the power to review laws. Why? Because if we give the president the power to say that whatever he does is constitutional or not, he'll always say it's constitutional, and he has enough power already. Well, why not give the power to Congress? After all, they're elected, and many countries have done that. To which Alexander Hamilton says, he doesn't say it in these words. He says, what happens when the decision is right but unpopular? He says, I'll tell you about Congress. They are experts in popularity. He says, believe me, they know popularity. But what will they do when it's unpopular? So let's take these judges nobody's ever heard of. They don't have the power of the purse. They don't have the power of the sword. Fabulous. They're weak. And give them the authority. You see? And it's when it's unpopular, and important, and by the way, possibly wrong. I mean, I participated on both sides of 5-4 decisions. Not as many as you think. There may be 20% or 5-4, 50% are unanimous. But somebody's wrong in those cases. All right, so and that's the question I get from the president of the Supreme Court of Ghana, a woman who is trying to further democracy and civil and human rights in Ghana, and from Ouagadougou, and from countries all over the world. Why do people do what you say? You say? And that's a pretty good question, and it's taken us, I say there is no answer in this document, and Hamilton didn't answer it either. He didn't know. Nobody knew. It's 200 years of history. And you want people in your country to follow courts and a rule of law, go out to the villages. Don't just talk to the lawyers. Don't just talk to the judges. By the way, there are, in our country, contrary to popular belief, 309 of the 310 million are not lawyers. And they're not, all right? And I say, they're the ones that had to support sending the troops to Little Rock to enforce integration. They're the ones that have to decide they will follow decisions that they think are really wrong and really unpopular. And that takes time. But that's part of our job. And who knows, you see. So I say we're conservative with a small c. And the radio, fine. They tried that in the D.C. Circuit, didn't hurt anything. Could we experiment with that? Maybe, but that's not right in front of us. So therefore, that's non-answer number 2.